on the ground, we've had, we just started, and we've already had real success in working with organizations that I admire enormously. People do, as I said, protecting vulnerable civilians, survivors of sexual violence, and child soldiers. In fact, the women you're looking at here, these people are being trained to do sewing as part of the rehabilitation after having fistula surgery in the Heal Africa Hospital, and we've associated ourselves with supporting them. There are 8 organizations now that we're working with, all of whom are working in the various capacities, like capacity building, education, legal reform, and working with vulnerable civilians. So it's really gone well. It's really been encouraging being down there and seeing the Congolese-led organizations, taking these steps and doing this work has been incredibly inspiring, and makes me want to, make sure that I don't let them down.
Being here today, what do you hope that people will will remember from the event today?
I think there's a different strata of people. Some people just showing up and hadn't heard about it. I think for those people, I hope that it makes an impression on them and that they look a little bit more deeply and they're more thoughtful about it, because I think it's, even if people in the country were informed and cared about these issues, they would be different. That itself would be a change. And in terms of the more well-educated or people on this issue, hopefully they can see what we're proposing in a way that makes sense to them, which is, as I said, kind of coalescing this strategy, redefining what we're doing, taking resources that are all over the place and using them in a concerted way.
The report that came out today, can you touch on that and how you're hoping that report would influence U.S. policy?
Another one of the things that we're advocating is systemic change, particularly in terms of government institutions like the FARDC, which, as we talked about there, the Congolese army is in need of reform. But also, it's not all about the government of Congo. It's about, getting donors to work together in an intelligent way. And for the United States to spend their money wisely and to understand that this is a moment of urgency, that there is this window. Congo's on the verge. They could fall back into chaos or it could go forward into recovery. And it's the responsibility of all the world stakeholders to participate in that. Because if there's failure there, I think everyone will have to accept some real blame.
My last question has to do with Jean-Pierre Bemba. How do you think him being tried right now in The Hague will affect upcoming elections and other problems going forward?
Well, it's hard to know. Obviously, Bemba had a lot of supporters and influence around the elections. There was violence, there were shootings, there was a question of whether or not he would accept this. My sense is that he doesn't have that same kind of support now. That years later, there are still loyalists to him, but they're in smaller numbers. But it really does point to these issues that they're confronting about peace and reconciliation, justice versus reconciliation. It's very tricky because you have people who are leaders, in effect, of political movements, but who've also committed crimes against humanity. But you have to be very thoughtful about, well, is convicting this guy going to create social unrest for us? I don't know the answer, but I do know that it's something that has to be handled carefully, and that probably it should be handled with the support of regional players.
In the panel today, someone talked about the eastern part of Congo being just a quarter of what the Congo is. What's the goal?
I've spent time in Kinshasa and in the rest of Congo, as well as in the east. And the point was well taken. It's like Kashmir is different from Pakistan. But nonetheless, Kashmir is the problem, chief problem that's exacerbating what's going on in Pakistan. So maybe it needs or wants more attention now. There's still a lot of those statistics that you hear about people, starvation and preventable disease. A lot of that comes from people that lived in the middle of the country, had no access to anything, couldn't eat, got sick, got an infection and couldn't get treated, that kind of thing. So it's not just a function of trauma in the East. I think that the relationship between Kinshasa and the East is naturally really important. The East isn't existing by itself. I think, as somebody pointed out, Kabila's political support is in the East, which is one of the things I think that led them to be resistant to making a peace deal with the CNDP. Yes, the East and the Middle are geographically different, and yes, there's more of a certain kinds of trauma there, but they're all one country, and they're all, these issues are extending everywhere. And I think the only solution is to look at it as a whole country.
Thank you for taking our questions.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate you talking.
Thank you.